by the way. It looks great.
Thank you. I spent about $2,500 on it.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Well done.
That's-
Yeah.
But everything's so cheap these days. Everything comes from China, doesn't it? That's one advantage, you know. But
It's true. Yeah. Well, it looks super smart.
yeah,
Very,
thank you.
very
Yeah,
impressed.
well, we just lean into it. That was the whole idea of it, you know, just to try and.
Mm,
Was that
yeah.
moonshine you're sipping there?
Yeah. I wish it was. Cheers. I'm starting early.
Drop of the shine, fantastic. That's a way to start. That is a way to start a podcast.
We'll start like that. Why don't you do that? Want me to take a sip?
we should do one just on drinking moonshine and see how drunk we get. Fantastic.
Like the
All
Dukes
right.
of Hazzard. Remember
Yeah,
that?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm up for that. But God, I haven't had any hard liquor for over a year now. Oh man.
Good for you.
No.
I'm trying to stop.
2, 1. Well, this was never really planned, but almost by osmosis, our little show seems to have taken a diversion and wandered off along the path of social media. So I thought, what the heck? Let's just go with the flow. And lo and behold, I've got at least a month's worth of guests who specialize in a subject that I know next to nothing about. So welcome to this idiot's guide to social media and sales. The show's been a long time coming, and I know that a change is going to come. There's a little musical reference, which is highly appropriate for my guest this week because she was a DJ on Sirius XM, broadcasting to hundreds of thousands of people. Why would you want to live the rock and roll lifestyle when you could spend your sleepless nights worrying about employees, finance, marketing, growth plans, strategy, and the like? You see, Kate Bradley Chernis is now the co-founder and CEO of Lately, a company that's been name-checked so many times on this show by all sorts of guests. Just to recap, Lately is a nifty piece of artificial intelligence-powered marketing software that automatically turns your blogs, videos, and podcasts into dozens of social media posts. Not only is the company and its mission worthy of an entire show, but Kate herself is someone well worth knowing. She's got a great social community on LinkedIn, hugely loyal, and she's always ready to lift up, support, cheerlead, advise, self-deprecate, muck in, and go with whatever flow passes her by. She's truly a leader for the 21st century. If only more bosses were like her. Now, before we start, there's a couple of thank yous that I need to go through, and we'll mention them along the way anyway. Making Sang, social media maven, who put us together in the first place. I know it's not just me, it's down to her as well. So thank you, May King. Chris Bro at Lately for not only being an unfathomably knowledgeable person on the Lately product, but also on music. And for a diversion, you should check out his next new music podcast. Laura and Kristen at Lately, thank you for your cheerleading of all things Kately. And finally, Ian Truscott, publisher of Rockstar CMO and fellow podcaster, to whom I have to thank because I first heard Kate on his show and I thought, if I could do a podcast half as good as that one, then I'm laughing. So let's see if Keith can be educated. Welcome, Kate.
No one has done that one yet. That was amazing. And you're hired. Like whenever when I die, can you please speak at my funeral?
Do the puns. Like, I'm good.
That was great
with puns.
I love puns.
Great to finally talk to you at last. I know this is it has been in the pipeline for a long time, so it's great.
Thank you.
You.
Yeah.
Now, I know you don't have your own podcast, but you appear on so many. It's I think you've actually had more airtime than me over the last 12 months. So I'm going to struggle to find a unique angle here, but I think I found it because this is a British podcast. So bring on the tea and crumpets. Actually, I've got one thing to say to you, Kate.
Yes.
15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Very well done. I love it. Although, isn't that guy Australian?
No, he's on a British soap opera called EastEnders.
Oh, no way! I did not know that.
Yeah. Well, I think he's been replaced now, but he's
that's where it originates.
People always get me to do that when I meet up with them. So
they do, and you oblige because you're so nice. You're a good man.
Enough of this foolishness. So that's not why you agreed to come on the podcast. So very quickly, here's one for you, right off the top. What's the one thing you've learned about people during this pandemic?
Can I swear on your show?
Of course you can. Swear what you
they're either in the pandemic, I feel like their best or worst selves get exaggerated, right?
Okay.
So they're either, going way out of their way to help all kinds of people, or they're just assholes,
Uh-huh.
frankly. That's been my experience. And it's been with people who I love and know, and it's been even with me. I found my own self either behaving ways that I couldn't continue because it was like how off. I mean, I'm paying people not to work at my house still, right? And how long can
Mhm.
that go on? Or how many takeouts can I do? To support the local restaurant or whatever it is. But and then also like losing patience. There's just so at some point I just wonder why people they forget to be empathetic, Keith. Like, I belong to a gym here
Right.
in my local area, and I love this gym, and it's a community center, and of course it hasn't been because we haven't been able to gather, right? And the owner of the gym has gone way out of his way to do things different than even are allowed. Like he's got only 3 or 4 people in the gym at the whole time, so he's not doing the 50% or 25%, and just really gone out of his way to help people. And yet people are money grubbing about their $30 membership, you know and I'm just like, are you kidding me? This is a man that we all love.
Yeah.
I told him to just take my $30 every month for the next year. I don't care. I want this gym to be here when I get back. And so it is, and these are really wealthy people. I live in a nice area, and I'm just
Right.
like, oh my God, what are you guys focusing on? You got to remember that there's a human on the other side of this thing, whatever it
Bit of
is.
family.
Maybe it's, yeah, and that's everywhere. Like, you walk into somewhere and someone's freaking out about someone out not wearing a mask. Yes, I hate that too. But guess what? When you just walked up to them and say, "Hey, can you put your mask on?" Most of the time they don't even realize it. And they're like, "Oh my God, I'm sorry."
Right.
So I just find it interesting that people are going they're going with hatred as opposed to going with love or empathy or sympathy, you know?
Yeah, and I think you're right. It does tend to sort of put a microscope on and accentuate everybody's kind of best and worst at the same time. I mean, I've
Yeah.
the best of times and the worst of times. I mean, it has been very, very Dickensian. The whole thing. But so yeah, well, that's a good observation. Thanks very much for that. I think that's great. Now. I know I haven't got you for too terribly long, so we can't do a monster podcast like we normally do. But just to set the scene for our listeners in the UK, so you've just walked through the door of Shark Tank or Dragon's Den, as it is in the UK. What's the opening pitch for Lately?
So Lately is the only social media marketing management platform that actually creates content for you. There you go. But if I really had to do it, I would probably, because I've given so many elevator pitches
Yeah.
and I've mucked them up, of course, because it's very difficult to describe what we do. I'm not doing it any justice right there. But that's what investors want is they want the one liner. They often don't want to take the time, thanks to Shark Tank, by the way, to get to know the human behind it and to really understand it. So what Shark Tank has done, Keith, is I was talking to my friend Simon about this. It's scienced out this whole process. And so investors and anyone is looking to plug me into a box, and I don't fit in a box.
No.
I just don't. It's not my nature, and that's an unacceptable answer, right? So they've it's more art than science. This kind of journey, right? So I've been learning that the hard way again and again for 7 years, and I've become very good this year in particular with saying fuck this system, right?
Yeah.
I don't if you're not going to take the time to get to know me, and it's the same way with our customers, if you're not going to take the time to have a demo with us because you're freaked out that, oh my God, we might actually get to know you, then you're not my customer. Yeah,
Ah, nice.
fine.
Staunchly independent. I think that's a nice yes, a nice sort of approach to take. And I mean, obviously, you're used to, like you said, I mean, you've made countless appearances on podcasts, and you've gone through the whole, the scenario of trying to explain what the business does and stuff like that. I mean, do you feel comfortable in the sort of podcast environment? I mean, is that a kind of a hark back to your DJ times?
Yeah, for sure. So as you were mentioning earlier, I used to be a rock and roll DJ broadcasting to 20 million listeners a day for XM. And then I worked
Now
in
I'm
terrestrial
intimidated.
radio before that, actually. and so up and down the Eastern Seaboard. And I was in live radio. Oh my God, what's that? I was so lucky. The one thing I've learned is that this is different though, right? Because I was playing music for you and I was the only person with the microphone. Um, so Clubhouse, for example, I don't love Clubhouse right now because it's talk radio, and I find it a waste of time because there's no content that I can use, frankly, right? So this is the reason I do these. I'm totally honest. Is this is lead gen for me.
Yep.
I only use this to market Lately, and we run it through our AI. Push a button, get 100 mini movie trailers, schedule them out over time, and we have a 98% sales conversion, Keith,
Wow.
which is amazing. Thank you, because the
I can
AI
understand
is
it.
smart. Yeah, I mean, it's really smart. It knows what people want to hear or watch or read, and I can't get that from Clubhouse. And like, not that there's nothing about human connection and all that. I get that, but like, I mean, really, like, who has the time?
I know. I got to say, I've got to hold my hand up here. I mean, I'm not an Apple product person anyway, so I'm kind of excluded by sheer dint of that fact. But the idea of having, a sort of an unformatted talkathon, I think is, I think it it's just another thing that it's another distraction, and I'm not quite sure we're all ready for more distractions yet. I'm distracted enough
Yeah,
as it is. But
agree.
so I mean, you mentioned that earlier. I just want to touch on that. You mentioned that the podcast is, it's a two-way thing rather than when you were DJing. It's a very much a one-way thing. I mean, do you think that the sort of podcasting and live streams and all that is a different skill set, or can you pull in stuff that from DJ? I mean, what can you port across?
It is different. I mean, because so I love Terry Gross, for example. She's the master interviewer, right? And I was actually very bad at interviewing when I was coming up in radio. I had to learn. I learned that skill in the last few years, actually. But it's learning about answers. So on it's both your side and my side. So on
Right.
my side, my goal, my job is to never give you a yes or no answer, and you should never ask me a yes or no question, right? Because that doesn't help anybody. But sometimes you have to carry the host and you have to know that. And then I think about what's your objective? Is it purely entertainment? Are you looking for sound bites of tips? I know what those are, right? Are you looking for me to totally say something new that I haven't said to anyone before? I have to think about that, what that might be. Are you looking for um, something more shocking, that kind of thing. And I learned that just from seeing who you are on the internet or
Right.
listening to your
So you
podcast
do
before,
your
right?
research.
Yeah. But of course, some of the same things apply, as you know. So this is still, for those who listen and don't watch, there's still theater of the mind. We have to keep that in mind, right? And tricks like leaving in mistakes or leaving space, so a little 30 seconds ago we were animated, we were talking a lot, really loud, lots of chatter right in between and no space, and then now we're having some space. How does that feel
Pacing
on
it.
the other side? Yeah, right. Kind of like I think about a wave file, right? So now like EDM, kill me now, every wave file is like just this thick chunk of chalk
Just
going
just
across,
talk,
right?
talk, 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 talk. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, but before, even 30 years ago, you'd see that space, that lovely space in a song, and you can hear it. Your ears can feel that breath of nature,
Yeah.
really organic.
Yeah. Space,
Yeah.
white space. It's like my dad.
Yeah.
My dad was an artist, and he always said it's about what you leave out rather than what you put in.
Brilliant.
Which is absolutely true. He'd draw a brick wall and just give the indication that there were bricks there, and it wouldn't fill in every brick. And he'd just say, "Well, your mind does the rest for you." And I think that happens with audio and stuff as well. That your mind kind of fills in for you as well.
Agree.
But
And it's by the way, and then it's your job, either way, the similarities are the trust factor. So even though I had just the mic and the listener, doesn't so much, my job, as is yours, is to make not only me your guest, but the listeners or watchers here feel that trust, feel like they're in the conversation, right? Feel like it's a two-way street. And that's the trick, right? That's is it I want to say magneticism? Is
that'll
that the
work.
right word?
Yeah, we'll have
I don't
that.
know. making
If
it
it's
up.
not, we'll just enter it into. We'll send it off to Oxford.
We'll enter it.
That'll do it.
We'll call up the OED.
We made a word. Can you do this, please?
Yes.
Well, look, I mean, just this is a little bit of a sidebar, but because you've got such great sort of music industry creds, I just wanted to touch on something, and it's not something we always do, current affairs stuff, but I was reading in the trade press last week that all the big sort of senior large fromages from Spotify, Apple, and Amazon and stuff like that in the UK have been grilled by sort of British politicians as part of this sort of inquiry into the economics of music streaming and stuff. And basically, I mean, the music business has primed a load of politicians so they can hide behind their skirts and sling mud at the music streaming services, I reckon. That's my take on it. But I love this quote from Universal Music. This is fantastic. All right, given what they've been doing for their entire 100-odd years, they said the issue of fair compensation for all music creators is essential to our mutual success.
those bastards. I mean, come on.
It's a bit rich coming from Universal, but
Yes.
I mean, to talk about fair compensation. But I mean, what's your view on the growth of music streaming and where it's going?
I mean, so my husband, I married a musician, of
I
course,
know,
because
that's why.
job hazard.
Go
And
on, name check, please.
David Chernis from the Damwells. That's the band. They're wonderful. And he would be mortified. By the way, he is in clean energy sales now and wears chinos and cut his hair, and he thinks no one should ever know he ever played a guitar. And I was like, dude, I know. It's a shame, but I'm outing him now. So he used to have this quote in his office, and I made him take it down because it was so negative, but it was the Hunter S. Thompson quote that says, "There's hundreds and hundreds of dollars to be made in the music business."
Yeah, that's about the size of it, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah, it's awful. I mean, it's unfortunately, I'm over it. I mean, everyone's over it because it's just been jaded. And I mean, 30 years ago, musicians were asking me all the time business advice, and I had a little company around that. And my advice was get the fuck out, because it's just, there's no money in it, and there's no it's very hard to get a reward. And I mean, so David's band, by the way, there's a great little documentary that won a number of awards called Golden Days. And what they used to do, so this is the Epic Records, which was a Sony subsidiary.
Right.
They would take 3 or 4 bands and pit them against each other for a time frame, and whoever came out on top is the one that the label would invest in, right? So yeah, exactly. So they had the Damwells, the Fray, and Augustana were the baby bands of that time.
Okay.
And this movie is kind of like right around there. So they're all opening for each other, all on tour together, and yada yada. Now the Fray was winning because they had the soundtrack to that TV show, right, with the piano and everything. And so they were trying to get the Damwells to put more keyboards and piano, and you can hear it on that record. And it's not them. They're a guitar band. And it's pretty, there's some great scenes of where the label is actually trying to tell them what to do in the studio. And you can see the guys like cringing, but that's what it's like. They don't give a fuck about how it sounds.
No.
They give a fuck about how it sounds like something else.
Yes, and it's funny you say that. And I was. Do you know a fella called Hank Blank? I don't know whether you've actually met him or not.
I haven't met him, but I've heard of him.
Okay, well he's in the world of business development. He's over on the West Coast, but he's been on our show a few times. But he tipped me onto a fantastic book which is set in Britain. Which I think I'm going to recommend to you. I know you're going to recommend a book to me at some point, but I'm going to recommend a book called Utopia Avenue. Okay. Great book. If you like reading books, this is a book about a band in the 60s and how it started and how the record industry kind of pulled it apart and how they survived and they got together, how the creative process works and stuff like that. It's a great book. I don't normally read fiction like that, but it's kind of it's sewn into the history of music as well at the same time, so you might enjoy that. but
Thank you.
it's a very damning indictment into the what the record industry has done to the music industry.
Yeah, it is. I love reading all those books, by the way, and especially like whether it's like, Keith Richards or MTV,
Great,
or
great
even I'm
author.
slogging through Bob Gruen's photography autobiography right now, which is very boring, by the way. I can't believe it. He met the most famous people in the world, and it's like literally like, I spent the day with Ike and Tina Turner.
And yeah, exactly. Oh, all
Yeah.
right. Well, listen, I got to move this along. I got to move this along. I'd love to sit and talk idle gossip with you, but we've got a product to sell here, and now, firstly, you quoted your I've in various interviews. You've quoted your dad as once telling you that you can't work for other people, and there's no shame in that. And I'd have probably had the same thing from my old man as well. He would have said the wonderfully similar thing to me. And it's an honest truth, very honest truth to drop on somebody. What were you doing that made him say that to you?
Crying my eyeballs out, and I was just this. I was in this dark place, Keith, where I couldn't see a way out, and I knew something was wrong, and my whole body was. I had a rash on my torso that nobody could explain. I had torn a ligament in my ankle repeatedly, so I was like on crutches or something like that for about almost 2 years.
Wow.
And I had I have a partial permanent disability now. I can't type or touch my computer or my phone without excruciating pain. And so I use voice activated software all day long.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I learned to do, I can do it. I do some sort of self-adjusting chiropractic things every day for about 45 minutes. So I can touch a little bit and do a demo. But it's why I rely on my team so much, And so I was in this great pain, and I was seeing all kinds of doctors, west, east, I was reading self-help books, yada, yada. And I still couldn't, I was like, gosh, I'm doing everything I can imagine that I should do, and nothing's changing. And I was scared. Like I couldn't do what everybody has to do to live. Like I started to imagine, well, how do I work? Can I get a job at the grocery store? No, because it's all typing into the computer. And so I was just crying a lot, and so I think he was annoyed, rightfully. But also my dad owned his own businesses, and he was very successful, and so I think he just was like, dumbass, wake up, and he hit on two things, which is one, the obvious, which is there's another path here, and I'm just not seeing it. And the other, though, that was more meaningful to me, I should really tell him this because he never hears any of these podcasts, um, is the shame. He said there's no shame in that. And what I had felt was deep shame because I wasn't getting an A, and I was doing A work. I was doing A plus work, right? And that's how I was young enough. So like, my rules of life were still kind of governed by school, which
Right.
obviously doesn't apply to life at all. But I couldn't figure this out. And the reason was I was trying to please a group of a boys club who would never let me in. And the goalpost was constantly moving, and I wasn't getting credit for the stuff I did do, right? But none of us really knew any of that then. We didn't know what a hostile work environment was, and that it would be related to sexual harassment. We didn't even know a lot of the stuff that I was experiencing was sexual harassment, like the obvious things. Like my boss would ask me every day, "Hey, Bradley, are your hands clean? Can you hold my dick while I pee?" Like every day, right? But I didn't know that was wrong because we were in radio and it was cool and we were like pirates. And so, but what I did know was that this feeling of like, I'm here, you know?
Right.
And I didn't know why that was. And so my body was just screaming at me, and I wasn't listening, or I wasn't listening the right way. And so it took my dad, and then also my husband gave me a book called Guy Kawasaki's Art of the Start, which you know well, right?
Yeah.
It's like the Bible of startup stuff. And so I started to read that. And then I was also reading The Secret, which is the worst book ever. It's so poorly written, and it's so cheesy and corny, and the movie is even worse. I don't know why I tortured myself with those things, but I was like just desperate to find a way out. And so it was like all the same week. I don't know if I had told you this before, but I was reading the book from David, the Art of the Start, and about, I don't know, 9 or 10 pages in, Guy says, "Don't make a plan, just get started." And I was like, okay. So I tossed the book, literally stopped reading it.
Done.
Yeah. I tried to pick it back up, but it didn't make sense then because it was more about inspiring you to do something as
You're
opposed
already
to,
inspired.
yeah. So I was like, okay. And then I went to lunch. It was an unusual lunch where a customer was hand delivering a product to me. And normally they would just mail it. And these guys were fans of mine at XM. That's why they wanted to have lunch. And we had lunch, and um, I was completely railing on this industry wonk at the time. His name was Bob Lefsitz, and he was he was just such a dick. Like, and everybody thought he was like the word of God. And um, he was talking about my channel. Our channel was his favorite at the Loft at XM, and he was giving my male boss the credit for the things I was doing.
Wow.
And that pissed me off publicly to like this huge audience of all my peers, you know? And so I was just going on about how stupid that was, and with a lot of cursing. And these two guys, Al and Scott, they liked me, and they were like, "We love you. Let's start a company. Here's $50,000."
Wow.
So we
And so
did.
you followed the Guy Kawasaki thing and just jumped straight in.
We winged it. Yeah, like we had I remember a rooftop meeting. It was super fun, and like these guys are, they've both been successful, and so they have wives and family a couple hours south of me towards the city. And like, so we would go have these awesome meetings where we're brainstorming all night, and like, then I would sleep in the guest room upstairs, and I was reading. Harry Potter had been coming out, and I hadn't had the new book. I couldn't afford a book actually, but his son had it, and so I would go there and I'd stay up all night reading the book.
Fantastic. While he was asleep.
Yeah, while he was asleep, and
You were
like it
turning down
was.
pages that he hadn't read yet.
Oh yeah, I was so excited.
Sure, I've read that bit.
But yeah, and we just started doing. We had a music taste making widget. So like, remember widgets, like those little kind of miniature websites that sat on top of websites, and it it did. We weren't trying to monetize it. We're just trying to make a cool thing, and it was cool. And I was marketing it and having fun doing that. And someone else came along and said, "Hey, you're really good at marketing. Would you like to consult us? We'll pay you a lot more money, and you don't have to listen to bad music anymore." Because like that is what being a DJ is. If you're a programmer, you're listening to a lot of frogs to find the gems, right? And and that's exhausting, by the way, Keith. So like, to find the gems, I'm thinking to myself, okay, how timeless is this song? Can it sit aside Dylan or Bob Marley
Right.
or The Clash, right? So it takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's active listening, and you're making notes like that. And I was just done. For some reason, I hadn't been able to let go of the music industry altogether because I was so scared of losing my identity. I was Kate Bradley. I was Kate from the Loft, 20 million listeners.
Yeah.
You know, who was I
Yeah.
going to be? Right? What was my cachet? And I wielded some power a little bit. I could get tickets to wherever I wanted. And that was cool. I was cool. I felt cool. But I didn't know that none of that defined me. I had to be forced to jump. Right.
And it seems to me, from listening to what you're just saying there, it seems to me that there was and I'll come on to this, and it's very interesting that you seem to have built, and you seem to build shells around yourself, around your physical self, and there's an outward projection of something, and so there was the Sirius XM personality and stuff like that, but inside it's very different. There's a very different person, and I think people do tend to do that, and probably women more especially in a man's environment would tend to do that. But and it brings me on to the sort of the being for, or the sort of the reasoning behind the Lately product, because and I'm glad I spotted this in you, because I think you're a genuinely fascinating person, because you are a walking juxtaposition. I mean, you've got a very kind of casual, kind of laid back manner, but just under the surface, there's a kind of a 24-carat Kevlar geek underneath, and and
Thank
I
you.
think I think that's absolutely fantastic. The reason that I say that is because I read the story about Walmart and the spreadsheet and how Lately got started and stuff like that, and your fascination with doing spreadsheets and stuff. I mean, you designed that whole thing from scratch. I mean, just run through very quickly how did you do that, and how does it relate to what Lately does now?
Yeah, thank you. And best compliment ever, by the way. And my husband would agree. I mean, when we met, he thought I was really cool. And then he found out I was crazy. And I know he was disappointed for a second, but
Good crazy, good crazy.
yeah, just for a second. But yeah, with Walmart, so that was the person. My aunt was the principal at the National Disability Institute, and she had this wonderful gift of pulling together nonprofit, for-profit, and government agencies for a single cause, which that rarely happens in DC, and that was her skill. And so she had pulled together Walmart, IRS, Bank of America, AT&T, United Way Worldwide, right? All these big entities,
Right.
and everybody was working together on a good cause. It was called My Free Taxes. It was a software designed to help lift the poor out of poverty through income tax credits and financial education, which sounds like a mouthful, but this is like, for people who make $18,000 a year to get a $2,000 tax credit, that's life-changing shit,
It is,
right?
yeah.
Mega. And so that's what this is about. And a lot of those people fall into the category of being Walmart's employees, which is why they were invested. And so, originally she said to me, listen, there's a lot of meetings. There's a lot of meetings for this. I can't do them all. Can you just sit on and be my eyes and ears? And I said, sure. And so to start with, and I just started building a spreadsheet to organize my own thoughts, because it wasn't just Bank of America, it was Bank of America and all their franchises, and Walmart and all their franchises, and United Way and all of theirs. So there was like almost 20,000 people, involved. And the spreadsheets were designed to literally lay out every aspect of marketing we were doing, or organic and paid. So whether it was creating a YouTube video, okay, where do we publish it? What's the link? What does it mention? Right. And then also tracking the analytics, like, okay, we did some new newspaper ads in Salt Lake City. What zip codes did we do? Which ones, filed taxes? Because we could track that kind of thing. And then we were looking at the writing. There was a number of consultants that they'd hired to come in. Everybody was hiring consultants to do writing. This is 2016. No, sorry, 2006, 2007. Yeah, 2008. So writing was kind of king on the internet then, right? And so we would write a blog, and then nothing would happen with it. Really, like maybe one social post, and like the social post had to go through the ringer for Walmart approval. God kill me now. So I thought, well, let's kill a million birds with one stone. Let's look through a blog. Let's try to use the sentences as a teaser to what's behind the blog, because nobody cares that Walmart is helping the poor. They don't. But like, changing someone's life with $2,000 is a more interesting kind of component. And then put a short link on the end of each sentence. So if I was reading a blog and looking through all these sexy quotes, I could get 40 social posts pretty quickly that Walmart would already approve, because they already had, right?
Right.
And then I gave, sorry, it's a long story, but I gave hundreds and hundreds of workshops at the same time, because I had to understand, like, what's the skill level of people on the ground at the franchise level versus here at the national level. And guess what? It was the same. It was amazing. Right? So I got a lot of knowledge about how different levels of businesses did their marketing or didn't do it. And the spreadsheet system, originally designed to just organize and create consistency and deliver messages. There was no cloud then. This was our cloud, right? That got us 130% ROI year over year for 3 years, right? So that was the idea behind Lately, when we used to think Lately was an organizing platform, which it's not.
No, it's not. I mean, so sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but
No, you're great.
you you basically figured out that the value was the sum of the parts rather than the entire blog, was being able
Yeah.
to pull out the smaller parts of it and make new headlines from those, which is effectively what Lately does now, and
Yeah.
except you can schedule the whole thing and sort of have it all automated and stuff.
Yep.
But
With
that was
video
the
too,
concept.
right?
But that was
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that's fantastic. That's
Thank you.
fantastic.
Because you know what, I have this phrase I always say to my team and to myself, which is it's always right in front of you, right? Like when I'm frustrated or when I hit a blank wall, I literally look because I got a million sticky notes here. Or like when I'm trying to write something or think about an idea, like we've already done it before somehow, or something that can be metaphorically twisted into what I need now. You know, it already exists. It's like music. You can't write a new song. There's only what are there, 11 notes? Is that right? I think something like that. Like I forget.
I think I only know about 6 of them.
Yeah, you can't rearrange them anymore. I mean, how many we've been doing this for 2,000 years now? So,
Yeah.
right? It has to be already some. There has to be hearkening to something. So I think about that in life constantly, actually, and it's just the best way to. I don't know about you, Keith, but like people freeze the most at the start of anything,
Right.
right? And so just eliminate that.
Just give
Right.
people a start, somewhere to start from. You've already said this. This is on the same subject, so start from there. That's amazing. And you know what? It's kind of I've been going. I mentioned right at the very start of the show. I'm very relatively new to the pleasures of social media in terms of it being a marketing tool as opposed to just a way of talking to people. But we had John Spirian on the show recently, and he is a LinkedIn expert, and that's kind of where I gravitate towards as a kind of a as an area or as a platform that I enjoy. But he did an experiment recently about scheduling articles and content that because he was unsure as to whether LinkedIn was kind of downgrading his content because if it was scheduled or if it wasn't, so if it was done live. And basically the outcome of that whole experiment was the fact that it doesn't make any difference. So you can actually, without any fear of losing value or attention spans of people, you can actually schedule up pieces of content and have them sort of go out across LinkedIn through the week. But that still leaves the problem of not being there, or the fact that you need to be there to respond and to comment, which is something that I got to say you and all the team at Lately are absolutely fantastic at, which is this kind of live feedback on stuff that goes out, and it is really good. I mean, how do you think? How would you advise that you strike a balance between automation and the whole sort of live sort of broadcast of content?
That's a good question, and it's hard. I mean, the only way to win is the hard way. You have to manually do work, you know, period. No matter what you're doing, you can't let the robots take over because they're not as good as the humans, period. But you can let them, like we were just saying, start you along the path, you
Right.
know. So whatever you're using, I mean, automation is great for that push. That's the part where the human doesn't need to be there live. But the pull, the response, is when the human does need to be there live, like you're saying. So push is creating content or using AI to create it for you and pushing it and scheduling it out over time. And then the pull is to be, yeah, okay. We have a
Sorry.
trick. So we have a trick, Keith, where we in our Slack channel, I have a channel called Sharing is Caring. And every time me or Katie, who does a lot of our social media for us, see a social post about us that will help us, gain engagement,
Yep.
where someone's talking about us, especially, I mean, because that's social proof from somebody, not us, right? We drop it in there and I tag everybody and say, okay, pile on. And so it's part of your employment at Lately is that you have to engage um, because
It
this is
doesn't
how
feel like
it
that. It,
works.
it never feels like they're kind of honor bound or duty bound to do it. It is part of what May King said in her show on the on the podcast, was that this is about name checking people and acknowledging those name checks, and sort of just generally keeping the ripples going of the
The
conversation. I
ripples.
think that's that's probably a sort of a fair way to do it. But it is so okay, well that is a good way of explaining it, in that the Lately product will actually get you over the sort of the initial creative blocks that you may be feeling, and then it's just a question of keeping up the momentum and stuff, and which I think is is a good way to do it. So I mean,
And with the team, by the way, sorry, Keith, real
yeah,
quick, the reason that it feels that way is because they want to win. Like they're invested in this game with me. They've bled with me. May King knows this, but so about 95% of my team wasn't paid for 2 years.
right, yeah,
They're pretty wonderful people. And the journey is hard, and so they're invested, and it's not by accident. I do a lot to make sure they are. Like I take the time to know about their lives and, you know, engage with them on social just generally so I can see who's having a shit week, you know. I know then I won't bust their balls if I
right,
know what's happening because I can see it, or just taking that time. Like I'm the kind of person that eats lunch standing up. When I eat lunch, I don't have time. Um, so when we have 2 required meetings each week. One is for the entire all hands team, and one is for the sales team. And I take the time always to do quick personal check-ins with people live during those meetings. And I get really mad if people miss them, because this is the one time the whole team gets together. We look each other in the eyeballs.
right,
This is before COVID. We always worked, from home. Humans are here, humans are here. Connect with them, because this person is gonna have to lift you up when the shit hits the fan, which it does like every day, you know. So, so that kind of camaraderie that we've built, and you hear about companies pissing on people all the time, and we're not like that because I already experienced that. you know,
got the t-shirt.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's fantastic. Well, that's good. It sounds like a fun place as well, and I know the team are all very kind of gung ho for Lately success as well. So I just wish that I hope that does come along fairly soon. But
thanks.
another of our guests, who I think you've met online as well, Vanessa Green, and she's a HubSpot nerd. And we had a conversation when we were talking about the inbound movement and creating valuable content to attract customers. And in the PR, marketing, and communications industry, in the agency world, this is really handy to have in the sort of toolkit. So what's your advice to any agency that's embarking on a content-driven approach to their marketing about how much time they should invest in content marketing?
It depends on what the overall objectives are and what kind of company it is, of course. Like if you're selling, um, machine parts for lawnmowers, it's going to be hard for you to make content your strategy, you know, um, generally speaking. So that's kind of one thing to think about. But I believe, content is king-ish. It's quality content that really is. Most companies spit out content that is careless, and they think it's just for SEO. So and we see it all the time, and people include us in that stuff all the time. Here's the top 10 best new AI tools, and then it's quoting like something off of I don't know, Product Hunt that I wrote like 8 years ago, you know.
Right.
And I understand why people do that. But it's I like to think a lot about what's the objective. I think most companies miss this all the time. Like I was talking to my friend Jen, who I love. She owns a salon where I live, and we were talking about her marketing, and I was like, "Why are you doing it? Literally, why are you doing it?" And she said, "Well, because we're supposed to." And I was like, "I don't know, to make money is why you do this, right?" And then let's break it down. What each part, So I like to go, if you're going micro, well, let's be in the middle of our funnel. Like, so I'm going to ask you for the file of this interview when we're done.
Yep.
I'm going to run it through Lately. Lately's AI is going to automatically look for the best quotes of things you or I have said that it already knows my audience will respond to, because it builds a writing model and is constantly learning. Like, so the AI is no slouch, right? And it picks those quotes out and it matches them with the video of you and me saying them. And then I can edit or make them pretty however I want. And then use, let's say we'll probably get 100, 150 out of these. I might choose 50 or 60 and schedule them once a week or something over time for the next 50 weeks, because the other thing we're doing here, you and I, we're already planning for this content to be legacy content. We're not talking about evaporating ideas. These are long-term ideas, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because we learned that
Yeah.
marketing is no longer immediate or live. I don't believe that at all. And if you're thinking like that, you're going to go to the way of the dinosaur pretty quickly. You need to start thinking that all your selling and marketing has longevity. And so once I have those social posts, what I'm looking for is what people reshare or click, right? And I design the content so the AI is going to start me there, and then my intern Alex actually will come in and optimize it. And she's thinking usually reshare versus click. And the reason is while I would like people to watch our podcast, they probably won't because they don't know me. Yeah, who are them? I'm nobody, you know.
Don't know me.
And right, I mean they just don't. But probably something you or I say here will resonate with them, and the reshare is ego validation. Reshares make people look good by osmosis, by basically, being the first tastemaker, or the first. It's like when someone gives you a new song, they get the credit for having given you that song, right?
Right.
So anyway, so that's a quick little to do of our objective, right? And my objective is sales, 100%. So I'm going to look at anybody who likes, comments, or shares on those social posts that we've done here is considered a warm lead. Then we talk to them, make friends with them, move them into a DM, get them on the demo. The demo converts at 98%. I know this, right? Yeah.
That's incredible.
So there's a reason. And the other thing is, I think people they constantly are forgetting what the objective is. I
Yeah.
was doing this with Walmart. Like I would put it on the top of the spreadsheet. Like someone would be like, okay, let's make a QR code. And I'm like, why? Tell me why. I mean it. Why do you think that's the best thing for us to do right now? Do people who live in poverty have access to QR codes on their phone? At the time they didn't. We had flip phones,
So yeah, okay. So I mean, again, this is all about the recycling, and I love the idea that you obviously give to your clients as well, about the idea of the fact there's a very long tail to all of this content, and I got sucked into when we first started last year, when we first started the podcasting thing. I got sucked into looking at those analytics and like watching them spike on the day of release and then like immediately go straight off the next day. And it was like, wow, damn it, I need to do like 5 a week or something to keep the analytics up. And then you notice that as you take a step back, you look at the fact that not everybody is tuned in the same way that you are, and not everybody is listening to them or waiting for the release of the next show. They're actually picking up on things that you may say about the show in 6 months' time or 3 months' time or whatever. So that I get, that I think is absolutely fascinating. And I mean, with that in mind, and I mean, I've obviously that a lot of our audience are PR related and or work in the sort of communications industry, and we've got the director general of the PRCA coming on the show soon as well. I mean, just in a nutshell, how do PR and comms agencies, how can they benefit from Lately?
Yeah. So interestingly, the Walmart project, we were working directly with comms, and one of the things that I built Lately to do was to abide by what's called key messaging in comms land, right? So that's your boilerplates, your keywords, your one-liners, all the things that people who write content are supposed to reference as they're writing content, for those who don't know. And what Lately allows you to do is you can, you can feed the AI that key messaging beforehand. And you can feed it key messaging tailored to different campaigns, by the way, and tell the AI to pay more attention to the words inside that key inside that key messaging as it's pulling quotes, right? As it's pulling headlines. and then you can curate it and learn from it along the way. So it'll produce these word clouds for you, and you can see it either emphasizing those keywords, or maybe it'll find new ones for you and start recommending them and say like, hey, I know you told me to pay attention to garlic, but it turns out that green onions is like kind of a big deal here for your people. Do you want to also look at this, right? So that's one way. And then the other way is, so Lately's platform works for social advocacy and social selling teams, where one CRO, for example, or CMO can auto-generate text or video or whatever from Lately in droves, and then pretty it up to make sure that all the key messaging is exactly how they want it to be, and push it out instantly to the social channels of any employee throughout the company. So she can either publish on their behalf without getting their logins. They give them to Lately once and she never has to see that again. Or she can dump it into a pipeline where they come into Lately and they have the ability to edit as they like. Now, this is totally different than the old way, which a lot of companies still do, which is like emailing you content and say like, hey, Keith, do you think you could publish on this on your Twitter channel? No, you're too busy.
Yes.
Right?
Okay.
So the control there is what our customers like, because then the comms team has the messaging control for executives or social selling teams or employee advocates or digital recruitment teams, right?
Fantastic. And so do you, is,
Nerd alert. Sorry.
well, I tell you what, I
Me.
think there is something inherently techie about the whole thing, but I wouldn't say it was nerdy. I think that the whole thing is that this is no worse than in the days of public relations when it first started, was, you know, the idea of being able to mass distribute press releases and things like that.
Yeah.
It's the same mentality. It's just done in a different way and using artificial intelligence. Now, so what's the do you have a presence in the UK? I mean, is there is there a focus on the UK?
There is, yeah. It happened by accident. I mean, and actually mostly thankful to a lot of podcasts that we were doing by people who hosted them in the UK. But also we've brought on a new team member who's located in London. I
Oh,
can't tell you just yet, but
is
he'll
it
be heading up larger deal sales for us from a London office, i.e. his home office,
James?
which we're excited about. Yeah,
Is it James Bond?
it is. It's Daniel. Actually, you know, Daniel Craig is my neighbor. He lives like right over the hill there. Not like,
Really?
I mean, yeah, really. I ran into him at the
Don't
grocery
tell him
store.
as he was climbing out of the swimming pool.
I wish so I knew it was him because I literally actually bumped into him, and he had a toque on and like a long sleeve shirt, and he was buff, but he's a little bit shorter than me actually, and I knew those blue eyes like in a second, and so. And you know, here I didn't even know who it was when I ran into him. It didn't hit me till afterwards, and I was like, "Oh, hey, how are you?" That's just what I say to people. And he was like, "Fine," and he moved on, and it hit me who it was. Then I followed him around a little bit because I wanted to see what he's buying, what was in his cart, and it was beer and paper towels.
Wow, that's a combination.
Well, the essentials, you know.
Beer and paper towels. Oh, fantastic! I got I got like that when I lived in London. I lived in or worked just down the
You
road.
got buff?
No, no, no. Me and buff just don't go together. But I'm more couch soft now. But, I used to work just down the road from Patrick Stewart, Star Trek. You
Oh
know,
yeah, amazing.
and I used to see him quite often. He'd be, all right, Patrick. And he never said hello.
Never did.
But
Why?
I used to
It's your
call that.
duty.
I used to
He's probably sick of it, poor thing.
live long and prosper, Patrick. You know. No. He wasn't having it. But okay, so now here's a question for you, and I know I'm
Sure.
very conscious of your time. So
You're okay. I texted someone. We got
okay.
a little wiggle room.
Well, okay. So if you could book a meeting with anyone, past or present, who would it be and why?
If I could book a meeting, a business meeting or any kind of meeting.
Whatever kind of meeting.
I don't know the answer to that question. It would be my husband's dad, who I never met. He died before I met him.
Oh, that's a great answer.
Yeah, I want to know where so David I know his mom and I know his brother, but and I know his sister, but he's the oldest, and like, oldest boys usually look just like their dads, and I know his dad was really funny. I don't know where he gets some of this stuff from, and I wonder what that origin is like,
Oh, that's lovely. That's great stuff.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know.
And so, okay, so something that I occasionally drop on people as well is that if you could give a piece of advice to a 12-year-old version of yourself, what would that be?
Don't do anything different. Just, like it's all I'm so embarrassed about so many things from when I was younger, but also those are all the things that make me me, and there's really nothing that I wouldn't do again, even stuff that to this day I blush about or might feel bad about. Um, like I guess I probably would have avoided a lot more pain if I could have listened to my gut earlier on, but I needed that pain to get here and to help other people, and all the things. So like it's a weird having perspective, as Chris Bro said this very well in an interview, which is when you're in it, you think the line zigzags, but when you're older, you can see that it's a straight line, you know?
That's very wise. Very wise.
Yeah.
He's a wise fellow, isn't he, Chris?
He really is. Yeah. He worked that first company I had where we did the music widget.
Right.
Chris worked for me for free. That's how I met him.
Man. And he has
Yeah.
an extensive music knowledge as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, and he's hilarious because he's so dry. His jokes are so dry, and so he would send me these audio files for the intro and outros, and I would just be crying with laughter because it was so comical to me. And he that's the delivery he does. You can, if you don't know him, like he's very dry and social, so you might not get his jokes a little bit, but I do, so I can I can just hear
Uh,
that deadpan voice. I love ironic people. Like I love people who seem really super shy, but then they're just wild and crazy, for example, I have a lot of those people in my life.
Well, it's again. I mean, that's kind of that comes back to your own sort of personality, isn't it? Is outward one thing and then inward another. So
Yeah.
I can see why you identify that. So, what's one thing that you would like people to take away from this show, knowing about you or the Lately product?
Um, the one thing is, I mean, so for entrepreneurs, I would say to you, whoever you are, um, you just keep being crazy. Like your crazy self is what makes the magic. And a lot of people are going to tell you and already do that you're wrong. But I love it when people tell me I'm wrong. They've been telling me I'm wrong forever, and I'm like, but it's working, you know. So, I mean, I'm just saying. Now, as I've gone on, I've been more like, it's working. Fuck you, because now I have that more confidence to say that. Um, but I think the other thing that people should know is, AI really is on the baby steps of its lifespan here in our world. So if it was a human, it's like 3 months old. There's nothing to be scared about. I'm really interested in AI with writing specifically, Keith, because you know it's the DNA of everything we do with communications, not
Exactly.
only for sales, marketing, but how we talk to our significant others. And people are really bad at communicating. We see it all the time. It's so easy to misunderstand, and so I'm really fascinated by why that is and how I can help other people get the heart across, right? And that's not I don't mean that to sound corny. You still need to have heart when you're selling, because that's what makes the register cha-ching. um And as I've been learning from our customers, they think of themselves as boring and not interesting. Their biggest challenge isn't actually just the fear of the blank page, which I thought it was. It's beyond that. It's finding a voice that's interesting enough to cut through the noise,
Right.
right?
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Excellent. And so long term, what's the long term vision for Lately? I mean, have you got sort of, plans for a massive IPO at some stage?
Yeah. So, there's a few handful of social media management tools. There's Hootsuite and Sprinkler and Buffer and Sprout Social, and they've been around for a decade or more, and none of them have AI, and they certainly don't create content for you, right? So it's interesting to me that they haven't evolved. I mean, it doesn't really matter how good your management tool is or your analytics are, because you can't polish a turd, Keith, right? Right. So what comes first? Um, so we're absolutely going to be number 5 right there, which I'm really excited about. And I'm really excited about that employee advocacy piece, right? Because we're stronger together. We know this. I mean, duh, I don't understand. I mean, I've been preaching this and doing it manually with my clients as an agency owner for years. I do it with my team. All my team has lately broadcasting messages for them, because I mean, I'm only this one little engine that could. I need an army of people. I need you. I need May King. How can I light them up, and how can I do it with some help, right? Um, and so I'm most excited about where we're going with that part of the platform, and there's a mindset shift right now in the world, as you know, right? And the idea of some of the ideas that we've been preaching for a while are now becoming obvious to people. This one is still, it's almost there. People are still really scared of trusting other people with the microphone, right? But you have to trust other people with the microphone, because that's the only way to be the beast, right?
And I think the employee advocacy thing is an absolute. I mean, that is a phenomenal, or a phenomenally underrated form of marketing right now. And I
Yeah.
think that's, there's a lot more for that to come. So, well, that's always, that's going to be a nice sort of takeaway from that. But so okay, so we're going to try and start to wrap things up now. So, when you're not working, what do you do to relax?
Well, we were talking about moonshine earlier, right?
Don't
um,
you put on
I'm always
and you
working.
sit with a banjo and drink moonshine, do you?
Yeah. Well, when the summer comes, we have one of those ghetto pools from Target that's like 12 feet wide and 3 feet deep,
Lovely.
that we put in the backyard, which, to the great dismay of all my neighbors, I'm sure, and I don't care. But I love floating in that, and I have my noodles, and I just, you know, that's heaven to me.
Excellent. That's lovely.
Yeah,
That sounds like a really nice way to relax as well, especially now because I'm buried in snow, or I was buried in snow. It's actually got
me
warm.
too.
It's bloody sick of it now. I could do with a nice go in a pool. That'd be fantastic. And so now I'm very feeling intimidated because I've got no idea what's coming around the corner here. So because you're a music nerd as well, what would be your Isolation Island track
Oh, wow. So, I want to say something from the Damwells.
for this week? What would be your Isolation Island track for this week?
I mean, my favorite song in the world is Don't Stand So Close to Me by The Police. And I love that song because there's multiple choruses. It starts out minor and ends up major. I love Andy Summers. I married a short guitar player, so like I got a thing there, um,
There's a type.
and
There's definitely a
yeah,
type there.
there's a type, yeah. Who knew?
Yeah, what a great call.
Um,
You don't look old enough to be a Police fan.
oh, thank you. I met Andy actually. He was kind of a dick at first, but then we were posing for a picture, and I said, "You're my Keith Richards," and then he was very nice after that. So that was
That
good.
probably made his
Yeah.
day.
I know, and I was like, "Come on, because his lady is named Kate and she's blonde." I'm like, "Can't we got
Ah,
a thing going on here?" Yeah, duh.
you must have a thing too, right?
That's some crazy fan shit, but like, I I'm a super fan around him. That's for sure.
Oh, good stuff. Well, that's a great call as well. That'll I'll enjoy putting that underneath the whole thing. And a book choice for our Zoom bookshelf. What you gonna put up there?
You know, wow, it's just
You did mention.
I reread actually. This is tough. I just reread Tony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential
Oh,
again. And I was a line cook, by the way, Keith, so all through high school, middle school, high school, and college. So, I mean, I love I love a boys club, obviously, and I love the pirateness of the kitchen is a lawless place, like radio, and very much like Ventureland, Startup Land. And one of the things I was rereading again and again is I love the chapter where he's talking about the vernacular of the kitchen and all the terms that we use. And one of my favorite parts of it, and sorry to be crass, is how like fuck is principally used as a comma, which is true. And I live by it. I mean, those are my people.
yeah, no, that's fantastic. And oh, that's great that you I think Bourdain was I mean, it's a sad loss for the world, but
It is.
he was just getting into his stride, I think, as well. That was the worst thing about it, was that show. I
Yeah.
just love watching it. I love whenever it comes on TV. I just love watching,
The one where he was drunk the whole time was the best show. Like, and there wasn't enough of it. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I mean, and it's so true. Like, so you can tell like that voice, and you know this, like
yeah,
that voice in writing is something I do well. So that's another reason I admire the character. And insouciant is like one of my favorite words. Someone described me that way as an insult once, and I had to look it up, and I was like, "That's amazing! I love that."
I think
And
it
it
was
just means like
wasnn't
irreverent.
it?
Yeah, yeah, like it's like irreverent rule breaker
Yeah,
type
yeah,
of thing,
yeah.
right? Yeah,
Fair enough. I think
um, yeah, and Anthony's insouciant description of an industry was not a surprise to me because I already have lived that industry, and but it was amazing to have other people know about it. And it's the
yeah.
same way like with startup life. The Shark Tank has nothing to do with what's really like. Um, but m- but I'm trying to share that in these kind of podcasts with people so they can. I want women and other people like me who didn't go to Harvard or Wharton and who are line cooks and rock climbers and rock and roll DJs and just, weirdos to know that they can do this.
I can't really top that. It's just, that's a fantastic way to the fantastic quote for the end of the show as well. And I am going to have to ask you, for the last thing to ask you for is your what 3 words? So 3 words that define you, and they don't have to be adjectives and now they can be nouns or names or anything, but 3 words that you want to claim for yourself that define you.
Well, I mean, we have to say insouciant now.
The biggest one.
That's yeah, that's one. I would say, um, boy, it's always so hard to do this, but um, angry. I'm actually pretty angry these days. I want to rub it in, and I've noticed that anger fuels my mission because I've been beat up a bit, you know. Um, and then
You don't look angry.
I don't, but I feel it, and it's anger at a lot of stuff, just that sort of frustration you get where you can't do anything about it, and so there's nothing left except to be angry. Um, and I think the other one would be 9, and I say that because I think being 9 is the best age. It's when you still have those glasses on, those sunny glasses, right? But you're old enough to articulate how you feel and you can see things around you. But that's a magical time. And like, I try to access my 9 um, every day, actually, whether it's sometimes David and I play DJ down in the living room where he plays a song and I play a song. And
Love it.
before you know it, I'm playing all the songs. It's fun. We jump around like total idiots. It's great.
Fantastic. And there's no alcohol involved.
Oh, there may or may not be alcohol involved.
Well, on that note, Kate, this absolutely has been epic. I wish we could have done it longer, but I know you're pushed for time, and I do appreciate you carving out time for us. But it has been everything that I hoped it would be, and I've been looking forward to this for ages. So all I can ask is that you don't forget us little ones when you're flying over us in your Learjet. And I look forward to hearing even greater things about Lately and its growth. So thank you very much for being on the show. You can say goodbye.
Oh, goodbye. Thank you.
We'll leave that nice pause in there.
Some people don't like it. They want you to like not say anything after they wrap up. So I never know. Like
Who doesn't like it?
A couple of people told me like they're like, oh,
Well,
that's
because
so
you get the last
unprofessional.
word. Is that the idea?
Yeah, it's last word shit. Yeah.
Oh, fuck that.
Yeah.
Jesus.
You should leave this all in, by the way.
You can have the last word. The last word's over to you, Kate. Go for it.
I love you, Keith. Thanks.